Everyone, I'm Natalie English, President and CEO of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, and we're really excited to have this Zoom meeting with Lisa Leath of Leath HR Group. Lisa, good to see you.
Hello.
Want to apologize to those of you who may have tried to log in live to watch this. There's just so much going on with technology this week, all of us trying to do Zoom meetings and to go Facebook Live, that we think the system's just tied up because we saw buffering and just could not get connected. So we're recording this. Lisa is an HR expert, has significant experience in the corporate sector, and has in recent years hung out her own shingle, and she's become a small business owner herself and offering HR consulting services to small and large businesses alike. And the Chamber has had the benefit of Lisa's services. And so I'm actually going to take pretty copious notes today while we're talking, but she and I and Megan Mullins on our staff came up with some questions that we're going to ask that we've been hearing from you all. And so hopefully we'll cover what you are interested in hearing. If we don't, we can certainly connect you directly to Lisa at a later time, or we can ask those questions and get them recorded and or posted at some point in the future. And so, Lisa, given the teleworking extravaganza going on right now, are there any special considerations that employers should keep in mind when we are expanding the use of teleworking?
Yeah, I mean, if one good thing came out of this, it's that we're all learning how to allow employees to work from home. For some, it's working out better than others, especially if you have kids at home. But I would say this is probably the first time we've maybe allowed hourly workers to work from home. So those are non-exempt folks that are the ones that are eligible for overtime, right? So we want to make sure that we're adhering to some of the laws that could put you at a liability there. And just my best piece of advice with hourly workers teleworking is that you have some kind of policy or guidelines for them laid out. You can even do it in an email. It doesn't have to be in your handbook or anything, that talk to people about how to record and log their hours. So if you've got a great record keeping system like an ADP where you can use your phone to clock in and out, that's awesome, do that. But for most small businesses, they use QuickBooks. And so just giving people some general guidelines on how much information do you need about the work that I'm doing. But you do need to pay folks for, just like if they were at work, you need to pay them for all hours worked. So if they're sending emails, at 8 o'clock at night, you got to pay them for that. So that's just probably the biggest watch out that people aren't thinking about right now. Obviously, you've all figured out your technology options. Zoom is great, and you can sign up for that for free, but other apps that are free are like Slack. There's also a great new app that's out there testing that I helped develop called Work Talk, which is great for virtual check-ins with employees. But I think telework is just not for every position, and there's a lot of companies that have called me that are saying, well, my employees just basically said they're going to work from home, and can I do anything about that? Or, I don't want to be a Scrooge and say you can't, but so then you go through the conversation of, okay, well, who can and who can't? And you are the business owner and you do have rights. So, you got to figure out and come up with some kind of policy on reducing the amount of people that are in the office. And if it's rotating people through, that's a good idea. But flesh out the plan, share it with folks, talk about it, let people ask questions, because although you've probably thought a lot about it, sometimes we forget that we're not verbalizing everything we've already hashed out in our own mind to employees. So just remind yourself that I haven't talked to all my employees about this yet. Let me make sure that they fully understand, even though you've been talking and thinking a lot about it in your own head.
That's great. So Lisa, so we've been fortunate here at the Chamber that we're close to the public, and there are only 6 of us on the team, right? And half have sort of selectively decided to work from home, and they're reporting in. We have a daily call at 10:30 in the morning to sort of share what we're working on, but then also to ask each other for the assistance that we need to continue doing our work. But so half of us sort of self-selected to work from home, and the other 3 of us are coming in and maintaining our social distancing and all of that. At any point, is it okay to require people to work? So if I came in and these 2 that are still coming in with me, can I make them go home and work from home?
Yeah, I mean, sure. As long as you've given them the tools that they need to do work from home. The one thing you'll probably want to consider is just like data security too. I mean, logging into public Wi-Fi, is that okay for your business? I think, unless you're having conversations with elected officials, you don't want people to see, I don't know, but like in most companies, you do have intellectual property you want to keep safe. Right now there's like a lot of weird phishing expeditions on email, I'm sure that people are aware of, but make sure that your employees are on guard and reporting any suspicious communications. But I mean, if you can give them the tools to work from home, you can tell them the office is closed, everyone's teleworking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Can I, as an employer, prohibit my employees from personal travel right now?
So we've got a few Wilmingtonians that are locked out of our country right now, scary as that is for them. And I'd love to see, our government officials try to help get them out,
Yeah.
and bring them home to quarantine safely. But you actually cannot prohibit, your employees from taking a vacation. I don't know where in the heck they would go, but because so many of these states are actually closing down all businesses, which will probably close down a lot of hotels and condos and the places that you want to go. But no, there's laws that protect employees' activities off duty. And so, all you can do is really just continue to educate people on where the real information is available, CDC and World Health Organization.
Sure. And we can't even vacation in our own home county now.
No.
Our beaches have closed down to anyone not living. So as an employer, Lisa, what are my rights for taking people's temperature before they come to work or asking people if they're healthy?
So before a couple of days ago, you couldn't do that, and now you can. So the EEOC is the one that actually governs the ADA, and that's what covers the requirement for reasonable accommodation and rules around medical examinations, and taking somebody's temperature is a medical examination. So if you are having folks come into work and you feel that it's within everybody's best interest to maintain wellness across the whole organization, you want to take people's temperature, okay, fine. I will tell you though, you got to get like a really good scanner, because like I went to my kids' daycare this morning and there were three scanners and all three of them were at a different temperature. So you want to pay an extra couple of bucks to get one that has an accurate reading, so that you're not turning away people that can work and want to work and are not sick. So I think it's really important that you understand you can take their temperature, but in general, you need to just be educating people that when they're sick, just stay home.
Right.
And then mean it, right? If you're like coming into work and you're hacking up a lung, you're not really like leading by example. And so many of us do that as the leaders in the organization. So go ahead and if you have sick employees and you want them to stay home because they're sick, do the same. The other thing is also, you got to figure out, if you're going to scan people's head at the door, who's going to do that?
Right.
And so you're going to pay somebody a full-time salary to scan at the door and scan heads.
Yeah.
So what PPE are they supposed to be wearing? How do they clean the thermometers up? You just need to be thinking about who's going to be doing the scanning.
Sure, a lot of stuff to think about there. So then let's move into probably the less desirable conversation, but one we're all having to have, especially small business owners right now. And is there a difference between layoff or termination or reduction in force? And how should we be talking about this, and what should we be doing at this point?
Yeah. So there is definitely, and a lot of people are like, what should we call it? What are my options here? And it's going to be completely dependent on how you run your business, how big it is, what kind of business downturn you're seeing right now. But laying people off is the worst thing you can do to somebody. Laying them off, terminating them, reduction in force, closing the doors on your business. I mean, but at the end of the day, you're in business to make money, and you'd like to have a business for patrons to come back to and employees to come back and work at. So the first thing I would say is let's define what a layoff is. A layoff is really temporary in nature, and so basically, there's a chance that you're gonna call me back. So if there's not enough work to perform, and they go on a layoff, obviously they can go get unemployment benefits. We can talk about that later. But a reduction in force is when, your business is not going so well that you've let, everybody take their vacations. You thought about unpaid time off and voluntary leaves. And now you're having to cut actual positions and not call people back. So when you're having a reduction in force, be sure not to call it a layoff. Now, there may be a layoff and then a reduction in force, or you may just have to, permanently let people go and terminate, and with no sort of idea what, it's going to look like at the end of the summer. But layoff is temporary, termination is permanent. What I would say is please make a plan. So if you're planning to let people go, you still have to please be conscious about not discriminating, right? Hey, I want to keep all the young people around because they're going to have a lot of energy to help me do all the stuff that we're going to need to do when we ramp back up. Or I want to keep, all the women around, or I want to keep all the men around because they're stronger. No. So before you lay people off or terminate folks, make sure that you're looking at sort of the demographics. Are you being fair and equitable in the process that you've sort of outlined? And you might even have a process outlined in a handbook. Let's say you're one of those organizations that you paid somebody like a lawyer or an HR person to write your handbook years ago. They may have actually put a process for laying people off or terminating people in that handbook. So first of all, go look and see if you have a process and follow that. And if you don't, document a process that is specific to your workplace, obviously, but it's got to comply with the laws that prohibit discrimination.
Got it. So let's talk about then unemployment. You mentioned that when you talked about layoffs, and can you tell us who's eligible? How do they get it? Will they increase their employer's unemployment insurance costs?
Yeah. So that's what everybody's worried about. And it's funny, I've talked to so many people that work in the restaurant industry, and they're like, I don't want to file for unemployment because either my boss will get mad at me or they're not going to call me back when they get business. And that's not true, because guess what? When you file unemployment related to work lost during the coronavirus, it's not going to impact their premiums under Governor Cooper's executive order that he put out this week. So it's not a black mark. It doesn't hurt the business. All it does is help you if you've been separated from employment, or if you've had your hours reduced. Let's say you're only working part-time now, folks can still file for unemployment because of coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever we're calling it here. So, I would say the other thing is, if you're terminating somebody right now in this time of coronavirus, and they were a poor performer or they did something egregious that you're firing them for, all the old rules still apply. So, you could still fight the unemployment for them. But you should just, if you get anything from the government about unemployment for your folks who filed due to coronavirus, it's sort of like Hurricane Florence. You just have to respond and let them know that, yes, this was for the virus and we had to reduce our staff and our hours. That is a question that your employees will have to answer when they go to file.
So what if, that's interesting. So the old rules still apply if I was already in the process of terminating an employee, but what if I was in the process of interviewing somebody for a new position or an empty or a vacant position?
This is happening to so many of my clients. They've already done the phone interviews with folks that are from out of town. I mean, a lot of the roles that we're recruiting for in our companies around town, we are, sadly, I know we're working on making sure we have the right talent here in the Cape Fear area, but we are recruiting from outside of the area for a lot of positions. And so, do the video conferences. Obviously, video interviews are great, but it's not the same as having somebody in person. What I'm doing with my candidates is just touching base. I put it on my calendar to touch base with them once a week, and I tell them I'm going to do this. And I'm like, hey, still interested in you, really want to get you to Wilmington when we're back to being this vibrant, beautiful place. And so just keeping them warm and not neglecting them so that they know they're still interested. You can have your story about, hey, we're a really stable company. When this thing is over, we can't wait to bring all our candidates in for interviews. And I think just letting them know about stability and like a high level of confidence in your future financial state will be a great way to keep candidates warm and continue to be interested in your company.
So to that end, we've heard one of the silver linings that's coming out of this is that some industries are actually having to ramp up because of how the crisis is impacting their business. Where should businesses post temporary job opportunities?
I would say, well, number one, if they're chamber members, they could send it to you and you could post it on your social media sites. That would be a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, I would just kind of go in the same direction that you typically go. I would still post it to temporary jobs to Indeed. I'd post it to all your social media platforms. I'd put them on your careers website. And then I would blast them out to any and all associations that you belong to. So whether it's a hospitality association or a farming association or construction association, whatever it is, but get these groups to share. And likely if they charge you something normally, they're probably going to waive the fees right now to post, because they're happy to see somebody employing folks.
Sure. What do you think?
The other thing too is send it to the NC Works
Mm-hmm.
And Small Business Center, all the coalition folks, the Small Business Center at Cape Fear Community College, SBTDC, UNCW Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. These guys do email blasts, and they're great resources, and I'm sure that they would share for free as well.
So as an employer, if I were to have to lay off or terminate positions as a result of this, are there any restrictions, or is there anything I should be concerned about as telling employees about possibilities outside? So if I know that Harris Teeter might be adding positions, is there anything to preclude me from mentioning that as I'm reluctantly letting people go as a suggestion?
No, I think that's an awesome practice. And you know what? In times like this, people need to feed their families. And guess what? The most that they can collect in unemployment is $350 a week, and that ain't much. And I think that even gets taxed. So the more you can give people on the way out, the more loyal they're going to feel to your organization. Give them information, print out a one-pager from the Division of Employment Services about how to file for unemployment. Give them information on that. Print out, if you do offer them benefits right now, print out your benefits summary again, so they know what medical insurance they have, at least probably through the end of the month or whatever the period they're going to remain on your plan for is. So give them information about unemployment, give them information about benefits. If you've got leads on jobs that they'd be qualified for, tell them where to go and apply and who to call. And, and make sure that you keep an open door with them, and tell them to call you if anything comes up, or if they have questions about the status of the business. And it might even be nice to get everybody's personal emails and contact information, because when you are ready to open those doors back up, you want to make sure you have updated information for your folks to give them a call.
Sure, absolutely. And then, sort of an open-ended question for you, Lisa, what other precautions should employers be taking right now?
I mean, besides, I love that we're doing this virtually. I'm sitting in my home office. Sadly, you're at the chamber. But
river. I don't know about your view, but mine's
I love that. That's the best view in town right there. But I would say, as much as possible, keep the group meetings to a minimum. If you have like a regular Friday lunch, maybe don't have it. Or if you do like individual box lunches for folks, people are on high alert right now. And call your insurance agents. This is like a thing that a lot of people are not thinking about right now, but they may be able to tell you information about, maybe you forgot you had teledoc, or like the virtual doctor that you could call under your insurance plan. Mm-hmm. Ask them, hey, is there anything I'm like missing that's, sort of out of the ordinary that could be helpful for me or my employees? And then your insurance agent can also talk to you about like what kind of business coverage you have here. I heard from one of my insurance friends over at SIA Group that there used to be a really cheap pandemic clause that you could add to your liability policy, and guess what? It ain't so cheap anymore. But unfortunately, I think this, this is what, the second coronavirus we've seen after SARS. It's probably going to happen again. So when this whole thing clears up, getting our sick leave policies in place, our unpaid leave policies in place, our insurance policies in place, and updating them to cover your business, so that you don't have to terminate people and close your doors. Sure. But call insurance.
Absolutely. So, and just as by way of closing, sort of to tie the conversation about employers and employee relations to some of the work that the Chamber's still trying to do, remind our members to go to the Chamber's homepage and click on the workplace skills gap analysis survey that we're doing. We want it to reflect certainly the times, and we know that maybe today, because of what we're going through, this survey will turn out differently than it would have without this situation. But we still want to know what are your skills needs, and especially if there are ones you're not meeting. So fill out that survey so that once we can come out of this and really focus on developing the talent that you need in your business, we can partner with our education institutions and develop that programming and try to get people back to work as quickly as possible. And then I would say I got my census form yesterday in my mailbox, so don't forget to fill that out. Cape Fear counts. We need to fill it out. We need to count everybody certainly in New Hanover County, that it's tied to federal dollars that get distributed, but we also want to count everybody in Brunswick County, especially on this side. We want Brunswick County back in the Wilmington MSA, and that's one way to do that. So just a couple of things while you're sitting at home with nothing to do in some cases, or not as much to do, because we can certainly be more efficient when phones aren't ringing and people aren't walking in the door. So those are some things we would suggest that you do while you have some downtime, and stay safe, wash your hands, keep your social distance. And if you need anything from us or from Lisa, don't hesitate to reach out. We can help connect you to Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for spending
Thank
the
you
time with
so much for doing this for the Chamber members and everybody else that's out there in the public that tuned in. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. She left.
Did you stop it?